Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. My guest today is Dr. Francis Collins, the director of the National Institutes of Health. He led the Human Genome Project, mapping and sequencing DNA to its successful completion in 2003. His best-selling book, The Language of God, published in 2006, describes his own conversion to Christianity as a young atheist doctor. The book created such interest that a year later, he founded the BioLogos Foundation, which now includes a popular website that has become a forum for issues involving science and faith. Dr. Collins was recently awarded the prestigious Templeton Prize for his accomplishments integrating faith and science. Previous recipients included Mother Teresa and Billy Graham. Dr. Collins, so good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
I'm very glad to be with you today.
You and your associates work night and day to develop COVID-19 vaccines and treatments as quickly as possible. When do you think a vaccine will be available to the public?
I am cautiously optimistic that by the end of 2020, let's say around about December, one or more of the several vaccines that are now going through rigorous testing will have been shown to be safe and effective and will be available for the public, although probably we will not immediately have 300 million doses. It'll take a little while to scale that up, but we'll have a lot at that point. So prayers and hopes and all kinds of good thoughts would be appreciated, because this is all hands on deck, flat out. We got to make this work.
Who will be prioritized to get the vaccine at first? And will people need a booster shot? And also, how long will the vaccine protect a person?
Those are all great questions, Lori. So in terms of priorities, we are about to see a panel of the National Academy of Medicine get together to try, with the appropriate input from bioethicists, figure out what would make the most sense. Healthcare providers, but also people at high risk, the elderly, people with chronic illnesses. All of those will need to be considered in deciding who would be first in line when we have that vaccine. But ultimately, we believe by the spring, we should have enough vaccine for all Americans who are interested in having this, which I hope will be all Americans, because this is going to be our best way to get past this terrible circumstance. In terms of how long the vaccine lasts, we don't really know. We don't know for sure how long immunity to COVID-19 lasts, because we haven't had time enough. It's such a new disease to see if anybody could actually get reinfected. So far, we haven't seen that. So we think immunity is going to last for a while. Will it be for life, or will you need a booster? We don't know yet. This is science. We're trying to get the answers, but we don't have all of them quite yet.
Well, polls show nearly a fourth of respondents said even when a vaccine is available, they will refuse it. What do you say to people who don't trust a vaccine?
Well, I hope they would step back from what's going on in terms of a lot of conspiracy theories and social media things that are going on and say, okay, let's look at the facts here. God gave us a brain to think about these things and to try to sort through what the evidence is. When the vaccines get tested, we will be very transparent about what we've learned about their safety and their efficacy, that is, their ability to prevent disease. And with now more than 130,000 people having died in the United States, I would hope nobody would walk away from the chance to stop that kind of death without a very good reason. So watch the data. Don't be too influenced by somebody who just posted something on their Facebook page. Look and see what the evidence is. I think God has given us, through science, the opportunity to make these kinds of discoveries and advances, and we ought to be able to do what we can to save lives, ours and those of other people. Because if we don't get enough of this so-called herd immunity, then the most vulnerable people may be the ones who suffer. It's up to all of us to think about them and not just ourselves.
Speaking of distrust, can you talk to Americans who are skeptical about the reports of the severity of COVID? That is, people who accuse politicians, the media, and even some medical experts of fear-mongering. What is the truth, Dr. Collins?
Well, I am a physician. I'm also a follower of Jesus, and I think we are called upon to look at what are the facts of the matter, and then with compassion to try to see what we can do to help. As a physician, I can tell you that this is an unprecedented disorder, that we've not seen anything like this in a century. Yes, many people do manage to get this disease and do pretty well. Some don't even know they have it. But for those who do get severe illness, who end up in the hospital, end up on ventilators, end up dying, this is a very serious plague. And for anybody to try to downgrade that who hasn't actually walked the halls of a hospital and seen what this disease is doing, then really do step back from any kind of political persuasions. And, you know, politics and medicine really don't mix very well together. We ought to be careful when we see that happening. And look at the evidence. And then I think you would agree, this is something, if we have the chance to do something about it, it should be all hands on deck. We should all be doing what we can to keep it from spreading further and to ultimately get past this.
We'll take a brief pause and continue our discussion with Dr. Francis Collins after this.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
We're back, continuing our interview with Dr. Francis Collins. What are the most promising treatments available to COVID patients now and in the near future? And what's your opinion about the volume of untested or barely tested treatments, like the doctor in Texas who's touting budesonide and as the silver bullet, or Israeli scientists who say statin drugs help, and the list goes on?
Well, the list is about 400 suggestions out there of what might be the right treatment. Right now, what do we know? We know that a drug called remdesivir can help people who are in the hospital needing oxygen. Probably doesn't help so much once you're on a ventilator. So before that, get that drug. That's an antiviral. Dexamethasone, proven to save lives for people who are the sickest of those on ventilators in an ICU. This does help. So those two we know about. Everything else is being tested. We aren't really able to say for sure because the evidence isn't there. One of my big goals in the last 3 months has been to try to prioritize, with help from all the smart minds in both industry and in academia and in government, of those 400, which are the ones that most need a rigorous test. So we'll find out whether they work or not. A lot of those clinical trials are now getting underway. We will know a lot more about this in the next couple of months. One of the things that I'm pretty excited about is the opportunity to use convalescent plasma. That is plasma that's donated by people who have survived. So if people are listening who have survived, I hope they would look into going to their blood bank or the Red Cross and donating a unit of blood, because that might save somebody else. And we could go even further than that and actually purify the antibodies from people who have survived, so-called monoclonal antibodies. And those are about to get tested in just the next few weeks to see whether they also provide life-saving benefits. There's a huge amount of work going on here. I wish it was going faster, but it is going faster than it ever has in the history of humankind.
Dr. Collins, what concerns you the most about the coronavirus pandemic and the nature of this COVID-19 virus?
This is a diabolical virus to try to deal with. What concerns me most is that we're still in the middle of it. It came on us very suddenly. It had this really unexpected property that wasn't fully appreciated at first, that people could in fact be infected and spread the disease without having any symptoms. That's never really happened before. Nobody thought that was going to be the case. But now we know that's the case, and you look in places like Florida and Texas, Arizona, California right now, where the disease is once again on the move. And we are really in a tough spot unless we all, as Americans, decide to take some responsibility for trying to stop that transmission. As the Surgeon General has said, put on your mask and then say, COVID stops with me, because that is something we can do. And it really is tragic that wearing a mask has become a political statement. How did we ever get in that space? If wearing a mask is a way to keep from spreading this disease because we don't know who's infected, I might be right now and I wouldn't necessarily know it, then if I'm outside in a little bit, I'm going to put my mask on to protect the people that I walk past. And that is not a political statement. And you've seen the president now putting a mask on as well. So please, can we move that space forward into something more sensible? We can all help with this. Keep your physical distancing 6 feet apart, wear the mask, wash your hands, don't gather in large crowds indoors especially. That's the best thing we've got. Until we have a treatment that's really effective and until we have that vaccine, we all have a chance to play our part. And certainly, most of you who are listening are Christians. Isn't this what we're called to do what we can to help those who are most vulnerable? That's our responsibility. And that doesn't matter whether you're somebody who's like me, 70 years old, or somebody who's 25 and feels like they're immortal and probably is not at great risk, but they could still get the disease. They could still pass it on to their grandmothers or their neighbors. And we don't want to do that. We want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
This is great information. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with more.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
No Super Falls man. Come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today.
Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
You're watching Healthy Living with my guest, NIH Director Dr. Francis Collins. Dr. Collins, in your statement accepting the Templeton Prize, you confessed doubts about how a loving God would permit this pandemic. What do you say to people wrestling with those same thoughts?
I say that is one of the hardest problems that we face as Christians, is why does a loving God allow suffering? The only answers I have found to that question are really answers I've found at the foot of the cross, because I know I serve a God who understands suffering and went through suffering in a way that I could never possibly imagine. And of course, plagues have been around for centuries. We're not the first generation to deal with this. I hope some people saw the wonderful essay in Time magazine by the wonderful theologian N.T. Wright, who talked about what this is and basically called upon us to remember that one of our roles as Christians is to lament, to look at a circumstance, to grieve, to lament, and then maybe stop asking, why did it happen? And instead ask, what can I do to help others who are taking this even harder than I am? So I guess that's not an easy answer. There is no answer that's easy to this theodicy question of why does a loving God allow suffering? But again, I don't have to explain to God what suffering means.
You are a leader in the scientific community with a deep Christian faith. Some would say that's a contradiction in beliefs. Are you an anomaly?
No, I'm not an anomaly. Surveys would say something like 40% of working scientists believe in God, and not just a vague idea of God, but a God who actually answers prayer. So that surprises people to hear that it's possible for scientists to also be people of faith, but it shouldn't. Science is the way that we can ask and answer questions about the natural world. It's an amazing opportunity to learn about God's creation using these tools of science. But there's a lot of questions that science is not prepared to address or not suited to address, like why am I here? And is there a God? And does God care about me? And what happens after I die? Science has virtually nothing to say. If you want to be somebody who has the chance to really explore creation, but also these other fundamental questions, then being a scientist who's also a person of faith is the best way to get there. I didn't discover that until I was 27 because I was an atheist for a while. But now I find this to be entirely harmonious. I can bring these worldviews together on any given afternoon and feel like I have a chance to really appreciate God's creation, both God's books, God's book, which is the Bible, but also God's works, which is creation and nature. And are those not both ways to worship the Creator?
When it comes to integrating science and faith, how do you view evolution? Some Christians view it as an assault on the biblical account of creation.
It is truly unfortunate that evolution has become such a bad word in so many Christian churches and Sunday schools. This is something that science has deduced on the basis of many, many decades of hard work, and yet somehow it has been demonized by Christians as an assault on Genesis 1. Go back and read St. Augustine, who tried to understand what Genesis was really all about, and you'll see a lot of skepticism until fairly recently about whether this was really intended to be a description of literal 24-hour days that were occurring at the beginning of all things. And basically, if one is willing to both look at the language of Genesis and how it would have been interpreted by people who read it for the first time, read John Walton's book, for instance, about the lost world of Genesis 1, and then look at the science evidence about origins and how it is that we are related to other species, which is very compelling. And you will perhaps be a little shaken up by it at first, but then you will find this is a wonderful synthesis. If God chose to create using this elegant way of putting in place creatures with big brains like you and me that could long for a relationship with God Almighty, why are we saying that's not the way we would have done it? It's elegant, it's beautiful, it's awesome, and it is, from my perspective, much more wonderful than what I would have done if I was making it up.
All right, we'll take a brief pause and continue our discussion with Dr. Francis Collins after this.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
From Washington, D.C., uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody.
Escalating fight.
Jenna Browder.
Goes his words carefully.
Ben Kennedy.
Plan to join him.
And Amber Strong.
For impeachment, grows a little bit louder.
Bringing you the political news that matters.
We get out and tell the story of the progress that we're making in this country.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6 on the CBN News Channel.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to CBN.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
We're back, continuing our interview with Dr. Francis Collins. Scripture tells us all things work together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. How can you see good coming out of this pandemic?
Well, that's Romans 8:28, and a verse that I'm very fond of. I did do a podcast just a couple of days ago with N.T. Wright, a person I just mentioned a minute ago. And he pulled out the original language for Romans 8:28 and said, what people have missed a little bit is that all things work for good for those who love the Lord. It sounds as if it's also a calling for us to work with God, not just all by ourselves. Maybe then again, a call to discipleship, a call to service. Okay, maybe that's what we should think about in the presence of this terrible pandemic, that this is an opportunity for us to do what God calls us to do. God does miracles, oftentimes through human beings. If people listening to this are feeling an urge that maybe there's something they could do for somebody who is suffering from COVID-19 while staying safe, well, let's all get out there and do those things. That's what God is calling us to. Maybe we can learn something from this. I do think, interestingly, around me, people who have not paid much attention to deep questions about the meaning of life and whether science is the whole answer or whether there might be something more than that, are paying more attention to those questions in the face of all this uncertainty. I'm not saying that that's what God is trying to do, is to wake people up. But what was it that C.S. Lewis once said? That God uses suffering sometimes as a megaphone to rouse a world that's not paying attention. Okay, the megaphone is pretty loud right now.
Indeed. Dr. Collins, any final thoughts?
Well, we're going to get through this. I know people are feeling very pressed in upon, suffering economically, suffering medically. This is unlike anything we've all been through and was totally unexpected. We are going to get through this. We can pull together. If there was ever a time to lean on your faith and know that God has an answer already figured out, this is a good one. And do pray for all those healthcare providers who are out there on the front lines risking their lives to try to reach out to those who are suffering. And yes, also pray for the scientists who are working night and day to try to get us to an answer where we can all be past this and back into the kind of life that we thought we were going to be leading until 2020 came along and shook it all up.
Dr. Francis Collins, we appreciate your work for the health of our country, and thank you for speaking so openly about your faith in Jesus.
I'm happy to do so. That is the rock upon which I stand, and I certainly never want to hide that under a basket.
All right. Well, thank you again. God bless you.
Bless you too. Bless all those who are listening today.
Thank you. And thank you for tuning in to this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. We'll see you again next time.